The second generation Porsche Cayenne, coded 958.1 and 958.2, carrying chassis code 92.A, was produced from 2010 to 2017 and sold for model years 2011 to 2018. The new model was poised to build on the success of the first generation model and had firmed up Porsche's finances and completed a series of financial success stories for the brand after the first iteration of the Porsche Boxster had started pulling in more buyers. This second generation Cayenne brought in more options to buyers, with the popular S model remaining. Along with the turbo iteration, Porsche continued with a diesel model from the late introduction of the first generation and added a hybrid model. It should be noted that if searching for a diesel Cayenne, model years from 2013 to 2016 were found to contain emissions defeat software, and so it is prudent to check the vehicles of this age have been inspected and fixed by Porsche to avoid any future emissions issues that may develop. The second generation Porsche Cayenne was more fuel efficient across the range compared with the first generation. Part of this is gained from a roughly 250 kg or 550 pound weight loss that made the new Cayenne more nimble than its predecessor and quicker in acceleration. The Cayenne was facelifted in July 2014 with exterior styling tweaks and the introduction of a plug-in hybrid model and the removal of the 4.8 litre V8 from the S models in favour of a 3.6 litre turbocharged V6 with a small power boost. Note that hybrid and e-hybrid are both paired with a supercharged 3 litre motor, but we'll cover the engines later on in the guide. Although very rare, a manual transmission was offered on some Cayennes. This is a 6-speed ZF unit, although nearly all Cayenne models you will find on the used market will be fitted with an 8-speed automatic Tiptronic unit supplied by ASIN. This 8-speed gearbox is coded TR-80SD. The second generation Cayenne also put its name in the record books, and to diesel motor enthusiasts you'll be happy to hear it was thanks to the addition of a 4.1 litre V8 diesel added to the lineup in 2014. Porsche broke a Guinness World Record by towing an Air France Airbus A380 in 2017, smashing the previous record for towing such a heavy object held by Nissan, which had towed an Aleutian IL-76 in 2013. The previous record was set at 170 tonnes, and Porsche's record was gained with an aircraft weight of 265 tonnes. Trim levels for the second generation Cayenne being with the base model simply named Cayenne, moving up to the S model, which was offered with a petrol, diesel or hybrid powertrain. From there is the GTS, Turbo and Turbo S models. Used buyers will likely find the S model to be popular in many markets across the world. It should be noted that when searching, that a wide range of optional extras was available on the S, from active roll bars, air suspension and a broad range of interior trims, exterior colours and wheel designs, meaning used prices can vary widely. If a dealer or an owner is able to offer the original build sheet or an optional specification slip, take this as a positive buying sign, but double check that the paperwork matches the VIN on the vehicle, as some sellers may accidentally or deliberately claim a vehicle is fitted with optional extras that are harder to identify for the average buyer, such as active anti-roll bars. Before we move on to the common areas to check when buying a Cayenne, we have a list of the recalls issued. As mentioned earlier in the guide, any diesel model affected by emissions defeat devices should have been recalled with paperwork or a service stamp added to the book to prove a repair has been carried out. If unsure, Porsche dealers should be able to confirm if the vehicle you are looking at is an effective age model and whether recall work has been undertaken. The affected engine codes were CASA, CRCA and CRC. In 2012 a recall was made on 2011 and 2012 model year vehicles, as headlight units could become detached from the front wing due to them not locking in place correctly. In November 2012 another recall was issued for 2011 and 2012 model year vehicles with hybrid powertrains due to the electronic plug connectors for the hybrid unit becoming strained and allowing the valves for the camshaft control to prematurely weaken and fail. The plug connectors were reworked. Note that we are not referring to a plug that a driver uses to charge, as these model years are not plug-in charge hybrids. They are charged from the engine, and the plug is a connector that would not normally be touched by a user in the normal operation of the vehicle. In December 2012 a recall coded WC58 was issued for 2013 model year vehicles across all specifications due to reported movement in the gear selector as the shifter was not locking in position. A selector support was fitted to rectify the issue. A recall in February 2013 was made for the Cayenne S and Turbo models produced for model years 2011 2012 and 2013. In affected vehicles, oil consumption is increased and a modified oil separator was fitted to increase vacuum to the crankcase, resolving the issue. In August 2013, a recall under Bulletin WD31 for 2011 to 2014 model years across the entire range that were fitted with Porsche Torque Vectoring Plus due to a reported rattling from the rear axle. The unit was reprogrammed, but no new hardware was needed. A recall in March 2015 was issued for the Cayenne S hybrid models for a reported fuel leak within the fuel rail. Affected VINs were recalled to avoid a possible fire hazard. Finally, in March 2016, a recall was made for VIN range WP1 ZZZ 92Z BLA 00200 to WP1ZZZ 92ZGA 93870 for impaired brake pedal actuation. A circlip on the bearing bracket of the brake pedal can become detached, compromising vehicle control. Moving on to common faults, and although Porsche has a strong reputation for build quality, there are still areas to look out for when looking at a used Cayenne. First up is, while on a test drive, use the start-stop function to see if there is any delay or jerking motion before the engine restarts and gets the vehicle moving again. An evaluation of the system will be needed if you experience this. Some owners have reported issues with the alarm system, although thankfully this is not a widespread issue. The interior sensor for the alarm can become overly sensitive. If this happens, a new sensor should resolve the issue. Although we would usually mention any issues pertaining to the engine when covering different motors in the Cayenne, the problem of cooling pipe failure seemed fairly widespread, and so we'll list it as a general common issue to look out for. When looking at a used example, check in the coolant level before and after a test drive and look for any staining or signs of coolant leaks around the engine. Please note, do not open the coolant reservoir immediately after driving, as the coolant will be hot and under pressure. Owners have reported rattles from the dashboard, and so it is worth driving over a bumpy surface at lower and higher speeds. Some rattles were not heard unless going slow, as the frequency of higher speeds removes the noise. Porsche are not generally known for poor fit and finish to their interiors, and so listen out on a test drive, as correcting the issue may become a headache after purchase. Transfer case problems leading to failure have been reported, and so make sure to run through all the gears on a drive and pay special attention to how smooth the shift action is moving up and down the gears. Any temporary increase in engine speed while the shift is taking place, or noticeable harder shifts than expected, are telltale signs. There were mixed reports on whether this affects all engines, and it quickly became anecdotal, and so our advice is, no matter what model or engine you are looking at, assume the possibility of an issue, and so to look out for it and catch it early. Any signs of water leakage into the passenger footwell is likely caused by a blocked drain line. There is a plug for the drain lines that can be released, allowing the drain to clear. Check windscreen wipers operate as normal. Any hesitation or failure to function may be a faulty bonnet switch, telling the car's onboard computer that it is unlatched, in which case the wipers will cease to function. A new switch is a popular remedy for this issue. Moving on to the motors, and while there are a large range of Cayenne models and specifications, there are 2 diesel engines and 4 petrol engines. One of the 4 petrol motors is also fitted to the hybrid models. We will name the specification of each motor is available in, as well as power options, although we should stress that you may find minor differences in your domestic market due to differences in emissions requirements, fuel and testing parameters. First up, we'll cover the 2 diesel engines. The V6 turbocharged diesel engine with 3 litre capacity is ubiquitous among many Volkswagen and Audi vehicles of the same age, and is a popular choice in Europe for the Cayenne. This engine is fitted to models simply named Cayenne Diesel, and comes in 3 power specifications depending on age. Early models produced until 2011 have 237 brake horsepower. After that, power increases to 242 brake horsepower until 2014. Fuel economy averages at 41.5 miles per gallon, or 6.81 litres per 100 kilometres. The engine was then upgraded to produce 258 brake horsepower with lower CO2 emissions than the previous motor, and remained in the Cayenne diesel model until the 958 generation ceased production. Owners generally consider these reliable, and looking through owner reports, the majority mention positive ownership experiences. However, we have previously looked at the 3 litre TDI motor fitted to other Volkswagen Group vehicles, and the majority of complaints centre around Dpf and Egr issues, along with lesser reported water pump failure. Listen to the engine run at idle for any rumbling or fluctuations in engine speed. Next up was the less popular 4.1 litre twin turbocharged V8 diesel commonly referred to as a 4.2 litre, in the Cayenne S diesel sold between 2014 and 2018. It comes with one power output of 380 brake horsepower with an average of 35.3 miles per gallon. This is the motor used to set the Guinness World Record for towing the 265-ton Airbus A380. The engine crosses Euro emissions 5 and 6 regulations and has since had a recall for emissions defeat devices, although the exact wording of the recall was less direct. Owners that have received a letter from Porsche for these vehicles have since been told that the recall is mandatory and for an emissions software update similar to what was advised for owners of the 3-litre V6 diesel. Overall, the 4.2-litre V8 diesel motor is considered exceptionally reliable in its block and motor design, as it also has application as a marine engine coded TDI 350-8. Most owners facing problems are for emissions equipment and a common issue with the transfer box rather than the motor itself. For this reason, it is best to check that the car drives smoothly and changes gears and through driving modes without hesitation. Next up are the petrol engines, and we'll start with a motor that has been around within the Volkswagen group for the longest. The base Cayenne model was fitted with a 3.6 litre V6, known as VR6 due to its unique design. Depending on the market you are in, the engine may run for the entire production of the 958 Cayenne, from the early .1 model to the facelift .2. Producing 295 brake horsepower with an average of 22.5 miles per gallon. These engines were thoroughly understood by this time, with only the thermostat housing and cooling pipes creeping up as occasional issues for owners. We will note that this motor was rare in many markets and not offered at all in others due to the 3-litre T engine that we'll move on to next. The supercharged 3-litre engine was also fitted to vehicles simply badged Cayenne, as well as the two hybrids. In hybrid form, this engine is paired with a small electric motor and does not require plugging into an additional power source. These are sold in the 958.1 models. In the 958.2 models from late 2014 onwards, they are paired with a plug-in hybrid system and a battery pack. Both hybrid models are sold in the Cayenne S trim. Power ranges from 340 brake horsepower in the markets with the base trim and no hybrid system, to 370 brake horsepower in the 958.1 hybrid models to 410 brake horsepower in the 958.2 plug-in hybrid models. Fuel economy varies widely due to the initial way hybrid systems were tested. However, we found owners that suggested a range from 31 miles per gallon in base models to over 50 miles per gallon in hybrid models, depending on how long the vehicle could be driven on a charge. Thermostat and water pump failures were reported on early models, along with the need to check spark plugs before their recommended intervals. Ignition coil packs were reported by some owners to have failed, resulting in a misfire. Finally, oil pressure switches failing as these vehicles reach higher mileages have been reported, along with engine management lights illuminating due to the PCV. Next up is another 3.6 litre V6, but not to be confused with the naturally aspirated engine found in the base Cayenne. This engine is a twin turbocharged V6 configuration. The motor is found in the Cayenne S, in the 958.2 from 2015 onwards, and is also in the facelift model GTS trim. In the Cayenne S it produces 414 brake horsepower, and in the GTS 434 brake horsepower. Average fuel economy is 28.8 miles per gallon, or 9.81 litres per 100 kilometres. The main reports we found for this motor is that some needed a dealer fix for oversensitive knock sensors. However, there was a software update that didn't exchange any of the hardware. Aside from this fix, we found few reports, although we should stress several buyers would have purchased this model with either a new car warranty or extended warranty, and so some minor issues may have been solved without report. One additional check to do is to check the shift around second gear, both moving up and down. Any hard shift should be a cause for concern. Finally, there is the V8, of which many owners find appealing due to the sound and performance. The 4.8 litre engine is available in naturally aspirated and turbocharged form, although those wanting the non-turbo model will be limited in most markets to a 958.1 pre-facelift Cayenne S or GTS model, producing 395 brake horsepower or 414 brake horsepower. Turbo models begin with 493 brake horsepower in early models, and then an upgrade in the 958.2 facelift for 513 brake horsepower. Then there is the Turbo S, followed in the same update schedule as the turbo trim. It begins with 542 brake horsepower and then 562 brake horsepower. Fuel economy averages 24.6 miles per gallon in naturally aspirated and turbo models. although slight variations in your home market may show the turbo model lower, with some quoting 21 miles per gallon. In real-world driving, we found owners that claimed the turbo was more efficient than the GTS. This could be due to a difference in the final drive ratio. Some markets, including the USA, had a recall issued for the Variocam bolts fitted to these engines. Speak with the seller to see if the car you are looking at is an affected chassis. If they don't know, a Porsche dealer should be able to answer this. In Europe, a recall was not issued, but it is worth asking if the bolts have been checked, and if there's any obvious vibration or misfire from the engine, it could be a sign of a failure starting with these bolts. If the camshaft actuator is the source of a problem, check the part numbers, and you should be able to find information on exact numbers when looking for the US recall to see if yours is affected. Be warned that if the bolts fail, there have been reports of engine failure as the timing of the motor is thrown out of specification. From our research, Porsche began to rectify this issue from late 2012 production onwards, and not all earlier models are affected, so be aware of the problem, but don't assume all early V8s will suffer any type of failure. Those that have watched our guide on the earlier generation Cayenne may remember the cooling pipe issues on the V8. Porsche claims that this issue is rectified in the 958 generation V8 models. Finally, we found a few owners reporting transmission issues after 100,000 miles, and the advice from owners is to get the gearbox oil replaced as the car reaches a 6-figure mileage, even though there is no listed schedule. On to our picks, and as we found in the previous generation Cayenne buyer's guide, it can be tough to pick between them all. In the end, we suggest looking for a 3-litre diesel if looking to keep running costs down, but if you have a higher budget, a turbo model from 2013 onwards would be a great mix of power and performance. We'd go for the turbo over the Turbo S, as in most markets there will be more choice. As ever, all the best with your car search.